Father, that these aren't my words. These are your words. You're just using me as a tool to deliver what you have for this specific time and season in our lives. I thank you that you guide us, you direct us, you comfort us. Just as this song says, because your Spirit is within me, I can walk in peace. Even through the detours of life, I can walk in peace and I can live in comfort because you guide me and you direct me. So Father, I thank you this morning that this series is going to help us navigate through the detours of life. And at the end, it's going to propel us into that place that we need to be in. So Father, I give this service to you. These words are yours. Do what you want in each and every heart. You're a personal God. So you're doing something corporately, but you're doing something personally in each and every one of us. I thank you for this day. In your name I pray. Amen. Amen. Well, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
It's good to see y'all. Hey, Carl. How you doing? Good. It's good to see all of you. It's been a few months since I've been. I can't remember. I think it was April. I don't remember when I was here last, but it's been a few months. It's been a busy summer. This series, Detours, is something the Lord gave to me to put together a little while ago. And it's always funny, and those of you who have, maybe you've preached a sermon or you've taught a class or you've put a series together, it's funny how when you do something like this, it seems like your own life walks through it at the same time. You put a sermon together and you end up experiencing what it is you put together, or you walk through that as you're doing that. Detours. Detours aren't always bad. We may view that word as a negative word, but detours can be positive. Detours, if you're on a road traveling and there's a detour, the detour is intended to take you around the construction, and it may seem like you're taking the longer route, but it's actually going to get you to your destination quicker than going right through the middle of the road construction. Detours are intended to put you on a better road and take you on a safer path and get you around some delays. So we may view the detours of life as negative, but they're not always negative. They may be, and we'll touch on that over the next 6 weeks. So this week, the overall title of the series is Detours. This week is Plan the Journey. Let's see if I can remember. Just to give you an idea where I'm going. I'm kind of mapping this. I'm mapping out our journey in life like going on a trip, a long distance trip. Plan the journey. Next week is prepare for a route change. Week 3 is at a crossroad. Week 4 is recalculating. Week 5 is probably where most of us fit, and it's are we there yet? And then week 6 is you have arrived at your destination. And so as you can see, these are all typically, if you go on any trip that's a long, I'm not talking driving to Bangor, I'm talking driving to Florida, driving out west, you hit every one of these challenges at some point, and it's the same on the journey of life. This trip that we're on with God, we hit all of these at some point or another. So this series is going to start out a little different than what you're used to hearing from me. So the first few weeks are going to be a little different. It might not be real prophetic. It might not, hopefully it's not pathetic, and it might not be real prophetic, but it's a little more, the first few weeks are a little more practical. I'm going to give you some practical tools to help you navigate through the detours of life. I believe as Christians, we should be paving the way in the business world and in our personal world. I believe we should be at the top. I believe that non-Christians and businesses should be coming to Christian business owners and saying, how are you doing what you're doing? We should be leading the way. We should be providing counsel to those on how to live a successful life, how to run a successful business, or whatever that may be. We should be at the top. So what this is going to start out as is, and I've experienced this, kind of where this series started, is I've experienced this in my own life, and I think you may be able to relate, is many of us we have prophetic words. We've heard that God is going to do this. He's going to do that. This is going to happen. But I don't know if any of you have had this thought, but I've had the thought, that's great, but what about right now? That's awesome that that's what He's going to do in 10 years, but what can I do right now that will put me on the path to that destination that God has for me? What are some practical things that I can do? So this is a little bit different. I'm going to take this series, at least the first few weeks, I'm going to take what I've learned in business. I'm going to take what I've learned in ministry, and I'm just going to take what I've just learned in life, and I'm going to combine those things together and hopefully put some tools in your hand to help you and to encourage you. So the first step in this process, on this journey we're on, is to plan it. Is to plan the journey. Whether you're building a home, you're building a business, a life, or a vacation, you have to plan. You have to have a plan in place. Without a plan, things may get completed and accomplished, but there will be much more confusion along the way and many more changes if you don't have a plan in place. Even with a plan, there's still changes. Things change, things happen, but a plan helps to keep you on track, and you'll find that there's fewer changes in your life if you have a plan that you're following. How many of you go on vacation and you just show up at the airport and have no clue where you're going? You just drive to the airport and say, I'll figure it out when I get there. I'll see what tickets are available. How many of you go on a long trip, you say, I'm going to go on vacation, and you have no idea where you're going, you just jump in the car and start driving? Some of you may do that. Some may have the personality. I don't. I don't have the personality to just jump in a vehicle and just start driving, and wherever I stop, I stop. I have to plan it out. Mostly the restaurants. I have to plan it out. Where am I going to eat? How many of you have completed a home improvement project that you did on your own? You didn't hire somebody to do it. Did you have a plan in place? Did you make a plan? Did you not make a plan? Have you ever done a project and you didn't make a plan? I have. I've done that. And what do I end up, when I don't have a plan to go by, I make 400 trips to Lowe's or wherever, and I stand, because I don't know what I need ahead of time, and then I stand there and I look at the project because I don't have a plan, at least in my mind, and I don't know the next step I'm going to make. If I have a plan in place when I'm doing that project, whether it be something small or something big, if I have a plan in place, I can get everything I need lined up. So it's ready to go. I have a plan in my mind. I know step 1, step 2, step 3. And that project goes much smoother than it would without a plan. Our lives are the same way as a home improvement project. It's the same way as going on a trip. We're building this house called life. Jesus is the general contractor. He's the one running the show. So we must put a plan together that He can work with. It's Holy Spirit led. He can help us plan. He leads us along the way. But I believe sometimes we get the mindset that being Holy Spirit led is always spontaneous, and that's not necessarily true. That's part of it. But the Holy Spirit likes to plan ahead too, and He'll help you put a plan in place to be successful. He's our GPS to keep us on track, like we have, and probably most of us have in our vehicles now. So there's 4 main points in today's message that I want to make in this first step of planning your journey. So real quick, those 4 points are going to be: count the cost, write it down and make it clear, submit the plans or the map to God, and then number 4 is draw out the route. So the first one, count the cost, Luke chapter 14. Luke chapter 14, verses 28 to 30. Luke 14, 28 to 30. But don't begin until you count the cost. For who would begin construction of a building without first calculating the cost to see if there is enough money to finish it? Otherwise, you might complete only the foundation before running out of money, and then everyone would laugh at you. They would say, "There's the person who started that building and couldn't afford to finish it." Now, this is a parable that he's speaking here. If you read a few verses before these, you will see Jesus is telling his disciples that they must carry their own cross to be his disciple. So he's speaking a parable so that they understand what it means to count the cost. I want to explain, I'm not going to focus on the verses before, but I know many will go read the verses before, so I want to clarify something in that. Some people take these passages out of context because he talks about, in the verses before, hating your wife and children. And we need to have correct understanding of that. They literally think they're supposed to disown everyone to follow Jesus. That's not what he's saying. The word hate there actually means to love less. So he doesn't mean hate as in we know the word hate. He's saying in order to follow me, you must love these less than me. Okay? So if you go on, I'm not focusing on those verses, but I wanted to put that out there. If you read the verses before, don't say, I need to hate my wife and my children in order to follow God, because that's not what he's saying. To be successful in life, on this journey, we have to count the costs. If you have a vision to start a business, to change careers, to go to college, to get married, to go into ministry, to relocate, whatever it is, step one really is counting the cost. What's this going to cost me? If I relate this to the building of a home, you must count the cost first. Many people jump in with drawing the plans but have no idea if they can even afford the job. We've bought and sold several homes. We've fixed them up and resold them. And the realtor that we used to work with, he's retired now, but the realtor we used to work with would never show us a house or show somebody our house that we were selling unless they showed him that they were pre-qualified from the bank to afford that amount of money. Because they said, you're wasting your time. You can't afford this house. I'm not going to show it to you. You had to count the cost. If you're planning a vacation, you have to count the cost. How much is it going to cost me to go here? Do I have enough money? What if my car breaks down along the way? You have to count the cost. You must map it out, make a plan, and part of that plan is building in some time and some budget for potential detours and delays. All of us here have had a moment of change. We're in a time of change, or we're heading towards a time of change, and counting the cost is key. I don't know about you, but I've found that. We're either, all of life, at least in my own life, maybe I'm rare, but I'm either in change, I'm coming out of change, or I'm heading towards change. Change is somewhere close by me and around me at some point. I have to be willing to count the cost. You must at least plan the journey, even if you don't know the entire route that you're going to take, but build in some time, build in some grace for some detours and some delays on your journey. Step one is in planning to succeed is determining what's it going to cost me. Financially, but not just financially. What will it cost me personally? What will it cost my family? Will it cost me anything spiritually? That was the biggest, when we moved to Georgia and moved back, one of our biggest concerns was spiritually, is this going to set me in the right place? so that I can be used and operate in the gifts that I have? What's it going to cost me? So whatever your dream is, whatever your next step is, start your plan by counting the cost. What is this going to cost me? Point number 2 is write it down and make it clear. Habakkuk chapter 2, verses 2 through 3. I'm going to read out of the NLT and then I'm going to read it out of the Message. It says, "Then the Lord said to me, write my answer plainly on tablets, so that a runner can carry the correct message to others. This vision is for a future time. It describes the end and it will be fulfilled. If it seems slow in coming, wait patiently, for it will surely take place. It will not be delayed." The Message version says, "And then God answered, write this, write what you see. Write it out in big block letters so that it can be read on the run. This vision message is a witness pointing to what's coming. It aches for the coming. It can hardly wait, and it doesn't lie. If it seems slow in coming, wait. It's on its way. It will come right on time." Now, not everyone may like to make a plan, but I'm telling you it's important when it comes to your life, to what God has called you to do, is to plan that out. Some of you, that may make you feel sick to think about sitting down and writing a plan, because you just don't like to do that. But it's important in order to take that step and get to that destination that God has for you. What I found about writing it down and making it clear is that if it puts something in front of you on paper that you can work towards. It gives you that next step. That's why we always encourage people, when you get a prophetic word, don't just listen to it, write it out. Transcribe it. Because I'll tell you, you catch things when you begin to write that out, because it's somewhat of a slow process. You're always hitting pause and play and pause and play. You can only type about 3 words at a time. You catch stuff that you don't catch when you're just listening to it. Write it out. Make it clear. Again, if I relate this to building a home or remodeling a house or going on a trip, if you try to build a house without a plan on paper, you can accomplish it, but it'll take much longer than if you had a plan in place. It'll be a slower process. If you take a trip and you have no plan of where you're going to go or how you're going to get there, you may get to a destination, but it may take you longer than you expected. We've driven back and forth to Georgia 3 different times. And every time we had a route mapped out. We timed our stops for gas, we timed our meal breaks. Didn't always hit them, but we had a plan. We knew where we were going to stop and where we needed to stop, and roughly what time that was going to happen. We timed our departure and arrival times to avoid rush hour in certain cities as much as possible. 2 of those trips, we had others traveling with us in another vehicle, so we had to write down our plan, make it clear, so that somebody else could run with it, so that they could follow us, so that they could be with us. Part of what you're called to do will involve others. Doesn't matter if it's business, if it's ministry, others are called to be part of what you're doing. There are others who are called to be on your team. They may not even know it yet, but they're called to be part of your team. But they can't be part of a team unless they know what your plan is. What's your vision? Have you made it clear? The church we're part of years ago didn't know that my wife and I would be part of their team. Lois didn't know years ago that we would come down here and be part of this team of people. But what have they done? They've created a vision that's clear, that we can read on the run and say, I want to be part of that. I want to help with that. That's what happens when you make your vision clear. You write it down. You make it clear. As you do, others will see what you're called to do, and they'll say, I want to be a part of what they're doing. I want to come alongside of them. That's why you're here. You believe in the vision of this place. That's why you're here. And then you just need to find your fit and where you fit in so that you can run with that same vision. It may be helping. It may be financial help. Some people will say, I don't have time, and we all need these. I don't have time to help, hands-on because I'm busy, but I can help financially. That's what God's blessed me to do. It may be financially. It may actually be getting in and getting your hands dirty. But if you don't have a plan, others can't see what you're called to do and come alongside of you and run with you. Again, that in the message it says, and then God answered, write what you see. Write it out in big block letters so that it can be read on the run. I find it interesting that the wording here says, write it in big block letters. In the construction industry, we write everything in big block letters. The plans have big block letters. The estimates have big block letters. Why? So that anybody can read it on the run. They're not trying to read my hen scratching that I write out because I can't read it half the time. But if I write it in big block letters, if I type that out, they can see the vision, they can read the plan. The next thing you need to do is when you have a plan is you submit those plans to God. He's the builder, He's the guy in charge, but you write out a plan, then you submit it to Him. You let Him guide you along the way. It's hard for God to lead you if you don't even have a plan for your own life, because He doesn't know. What I found is He doesn't push you into anything. He won't make you do anything. So if He doesn't know what you're willing to do, He's just going to sit there and wait on you to make that plan. Proverbs 16:3 says, put God in charge of your work. Then what you've planned will take place. That's in the Message version. In the Amplified version, Proverbs 16:3 says, roll your works upon the Lord. Commit and trust them wholly to Him. He will cause your thoughts to become agreeable to His will, and so shall your plans be established and succeed. The answer as to why we do this, is I kind of read these backwards, is found in the previous verses 1 and 2. The plans of the mind and orderly thinking belong to man, but from the Lord comes the wise answer of the tongue. All the ways of a man are pure in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the spirits, the thoughts, and the intents of the heart. We write our plan down, which is full of, it may be Spirit-led, some of it may be full of my own wants and my own desires, but we submit that plan to God and say, God, here's my plan. You adjust this however you need to adjust this, but here's my plan. He weighs out our spirits. He weighs out our motives, and He tweaks, and He adjusts. But He's got to have a plan to work with. If you're building a home, there are certain people you have to submit those plans to. Now, the company I work for is based out of Georgia, and we build totally different than we do in northern Maine. There's different requirements than there are in northern Maine to building a house. But the company I work for, we have a set of pre-designed plans that customers can pick from, and then they can pick those plans and they can modify them and they can customize those however they want to. They can move walls, they can add bathrooms, they can reduce square footage, they can put windows in where there aren't windows. They can, whatever they want to do, as long as it's really possible to do it, we'll do it. But those plans have to be submitted. A salesperson has to make those changes, and they submit them to the general manager of an office, and then they submit them to our drafting department, and then they come to the department I work in estimating, and we have to make sure that, yeah, this is doable, that we charge them enough money to do this. In most areas we build, plans have to be submitted to the city in order to gain a building permit. If somebody's building in a subdivision, there's HOA boards that have to have their say, and they have to be submitted to them for approval. If we build on the coast, the plans have to go to an engineer to make sure that it's engineered to withstand hurricane winds. There's different people that have to put their stamp of approval on those plans. If you're taking a journey with somebody else, you may want to submit your plans to the other people that are going with you so you don't have some unhappy campers along the way. Maybe they're not real crazy about this vacation you're dragging them along with you on. The vision for your life, your dream, is way more complex than building a house. But the master builder, he knows every design. He can look at your plans and he can change things up so that it's going to be better for you. Submit your plans to him. Get his approval. Let him tweak and adjust and make changes so that you have a better home. There's people that will submit plans to us, homeowners, and they'll say, I want to do this, this, and this. And based on 47 years of experience building homes in this company I had to work for, there's times we'll say, no, you don't want to do that. Let me tell you why you don't want to do that, because we've done this before and here's some problems you're going to. Let me suggest that you do this and you'll have a better, longer lasting product in the end. Based on experience that God has and the knowledge that he has, submit those plans to him and let him tweak it a little bit. No, I got a little better route for you to go on. I'm going to detour you. You want to go straight through road construction. I want to bring you out around it a little bit. I got a little different road that's going to lead you to a place where you'll be better off in the end. He knows the road we're supposed to be on. Detours aren't always a negative thing. There can be positive aspects to detours. And then we got to take our plan and we have to draw it out. Whether it's a plan for a house or a vacation you're going on, you get the best results and the end product becomes the most efficient when you draw that plan out. When you map that route out, it becomes more efficient. When we lived in Georgia, pretty much every trip we took, even to the grocery store, you had to plan it out in your head because traffic was so crazy that you kind of mapped it out before you even left the house to, okay, how am I going to, it's 5 o'clock, that road's going to be crazy, that road's going to be, so maybe if I take this road, I'll get there quicker. You got to map out every move in this journey. You're always mapping out the best route to get you to where you want to be in the most efficient time. You've got to take that vision God has given you and start drawing it out. Start making a plan. If you haven't done this in your own life, I'm telling you, this is key. This is step one. What is God calling you to do for your own life? If you have not drawn out a plan or written out a plan, that's step one. You've got to start there. You have to make a plan so he has something to work with. He cannot work with nothing. He cannot work with us just sitting and saying, oh, God, you figure it out. I'm here. I'm here. You just tell me when to go next, when to make the next step. No, he wants a plan. So he knows what your heart is, and he can work with that and start giving you steps along the way. So making a plan will give you steps to take to move towards that goal. And we're going to talk a little more in the weeks to come, a little more in depth about that, but it even gives you something to, when you make a plan, you're going to find that throughout this journey, every week, it doesn't matter what stage I'm talking about, every week I'm going to refer back to week 1. What's your plan say? When you hit roadblocks in life, when confusion comes in and when you get disappointed and things don't happen the way you think they're supposed to happen, you always refer back to your plan. That's what keeps you on track. Okay, I got a little bit off track, but what's my plan? What was my original plan? What's that vision? You refer back to that. So again, much of what I've given you today and what I'm going to give you throughout the first few weeks is very practical. Now, if you're saying, okay, this is great, but I still don't know where to start, let me give you a few quick pointers on where to start. You may be thinking, I don't even know what my calling is. That's great. If I had a vision, I'd know where to start, but I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. First is You need a vision, not a vision in your head, not like something you see with your eye, but a vision of something you write down that basically this is what I'm called to do. This is what I'm supposed to do. You write that down. What is God calling you to do? What's the passions that you have? And it's not always ministry related. So don't sit there and think, well, I really don't have a passion for, to preach or anything. It's not always that. It could be business. It could be working in a rehab center. There's a lot of things that you're called to do. You write that down. Here's what I think I'm called to do. Start there. Next, you need a mission. What's my purpose in this vision? What do I want to accomplish in my life? Vision is seeing. Mission is what does this vision need to accomplish? A mission statement is a concise explanation of the reason for existence. It describes your purpose. It describes an overall intention. The mission statement supports the vision and serves to communicate purpose and direction to others. Write it down. Make it clear. You can tell somebody your vision, but they kind of need to know what's your mission. What do you want to accomplish in this? Some questions to consider if you struggle with this. What is your purpose? What do you or your organization, whatever, why do they exist? Why do you exist today on earth? Why do you do what you do? Why do you have the passions that you have? A vision statement looks forward and creates a mental image of the ideal state you wish to achieve. I guess the easiest way to explain this is a vision is a broad picture of what you want to do. The mission starts to narrow it down. How am I going to accomplish this, and what do I want to accomplish through this? Lois, I'm sure when she started this, she had a vision, a broad vision, but then she had to narrow it down. Okay, that's great. I want to gather people together, but what do I want to accomplish within that? And how are we going to do that? If you struggle with, some of the best advice I ever had was if you struggle with figuring out what you're called to do, what your purpose is on this earth, you start by asking yourself, what problem is there on earth today that I want to help solve? It just drives me crazy. Let me say, I'm just using an example. It drives me crazy when I see homeless people on the side of the street. I wish somebody would do something with them. Really. If you're that passionate about it, you're probably called to do something about it, or to be a part in doing something about that. What are you so passionate about? Is there a problem that you want to fix that's probably pointing you in the direction of what you're called to do? Where are you headed? Another question is, if you achieved all of your goals, what would you want to look like 10 years from now? That helps you kind of map things out. I challenge you this week even, if I was to give homework, this would be homework, but I'm not necessarily giving you homework. Write it down. Write down your vision. Write down your mission. Make it clear as to what you want to do. I'm going to give you an example, and we've not ever shared this with anybody else, but I want to use this as an example. When we were in Georgia, we wrote down, if we ever, because we know someday, I don't know when, but someday we'll do this. If we were to plant a church ourselves, what would it look like? So we came up with a name. But the vision is reaching our community by bringing a message of grace that restores, revives, and releases. Okay, that's a vision. That's a very broad, okay, that's great. Where do you start? But the mission is we want to build relationships through smaller group settings. We want to serve our community in an impactful way through reaching out into the schools and the needs of the community, through offering food, fundraising benefits, serving our police officers and our firefighters as a church, restoring people through partnering with rehab centers, with funds and volunteers and people to help out, encouraging people through the prophetic to awaken and ignite them into their purpose and destiny, and training up leaders to walk in their full calling. Those are steps. That's a mission to fulfill the vision. So that's where you need to start. Write down your vision. It may be very broad. It may be way out there. But you start with that, and then you start saying, how do I get there? And submit those plans to God. Detours are going to come in your life while you're on a journey. You cannot avoid detours in your life. As much as you try, you will not avoid detours. It's important that we have a clear vision that we can always go back to when we face those detours to make sure we stay on the right road. And we got to have somebody to submit those to. Amen.